Let's see here what's going on. Welcome to the Double Fine Amnesia Fortnight Game Festival. We are finished with Amnesia Fortnight. Can you believe it, guys? It's been so crazy. A crazy 2 weeks. But we're here now. We've got 5 finished prototypes, and we're going to be playing them today at 2 o'clock. So in a couple hours, we're going to bring all of the project leads in here, play the games, and have a great time. Awesome. All right, well, you can take off and go watch people play. Okay. I will give it a shot.
Yes.
Awesome.
All right, cool.
Thanks, Lee. Looks amazing. All right, let's see how quickly I can die.
And if you hit tab, you can look through his eyes. Yeah. So he's moving around seeking energy, but there's an enemy right there, and he just took him out for you. Because that guy probably attacked him. Yeah.
Parts for you, Jeff.
It's the combination of he's just fast enough, and he doesn't care about movement. Bots care about movement; they can get distracted really easily. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh no! The
Looks
double melee arm got him.
Yeah. He's those guys are pretty nasty.
Oh, look at
that. Oh, it's pretty convincing though. Oh shit.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Yep.
That was so convincing.
Was really
if you weren't standing here, I would try that again.
No, but
You said that's not what I'm supposed to do.
Using panache over brains to beat a situation.
Yeah.
I got this. Let's have. Well, I mean, this is okay. That's the cheesy way to do it, right? Is that I can just kill them.
Well, so
all.
the thing about those guys is they explode into more fireballs when they die.
Oh, nice. I like it.
So you're gonna have to come up with something.
That's excellent. That now I actually have to think, which is you don't want to capture that on camera. Oh, that was not what I wanted. Let's increase that. How about this? What do you think about that? Friendly damage.
Oh yeah, you got one of them.
Yeah.
Now you've got like 40 more.
There's 40 of these guys?
Yeah, there's a whole second series of them.
Oh my god. Okay, what else do I have? What else do I have to work with?
Kill each other.
Wait, but he won't kill himself. That is so awesome. That is so amazing. How long is my whip? I've asked that many times.
That's not the usual answer he gets though.
It's about an average male whip.
Yeah, no, it's a good size. It's fine.
And really, Brad, it's how you're using it.
Yeah, it's how you use your whip. Really.
I just want to say thank everybody for working so hard on all these prototypes. Congratulations, everybody who pitched the game, who is now feeling really lucky that their game didn't get picked because they saw how hard that was. I want to thank Isa and Greg for doing such a great job pulling this whole thing together. And Chris Remo and Allison and everyone who helped with the live stream. And I want to thank everyone watching the live stream who's watched all week. Everyone say thank you to the live stream. All right. Oh, look, people are crying. I love you guys too. Thanks for watching. Bye. Bye, everybody. See ya.
I was going to do the switcheroo, which was the bait and switch, which was like people voted for autonomous, and then when I was going to go up and do the presentation, I had this idea. So I actually had planned this. I'd made slides for it, and it was just going to be a joke. I wasn't really going to switch, but I was going to act like I'd switched it. And I was so excited by this. I told my wife, I'm like, look at what I'm doing. I'm going to go up there. I'm going to say thank you for our votes, but it was a charade. In fact, what we're really doing is making a game called Butt Chugging, and it's about butt chugging, right? Which had been in the news around the time of that because they found like a passed out frat boy with a PVC trailing out of his ass or whatever. So like I was gonna like
use a move controller or
So that's what that means.
they give themselves an alcohol enema because they want to get drunk faster, but then like someone overdid it and they find these people passed out with.
thing. Every simple pleasure in life ruined by someone going over the top.
So I put the slides together and I was gonna just present it straight like we were doing butt chugging. And then my wife's like, do not do that. You look like the biggest asshole. Like people will be so mad at you. They won't think it's funny. You look like so.
That would have been great.
Can we include that prototype in the special edition?
Do you get a note on your door when you're leaving every morning? Whatever you're thinking about doing, don't.
I've gathered you all here because you're all in big trouble. I want to talk to you about your performance. All of you. Only one of you is not being fired. So you guys are going to pick. Did I tell you what Amnesia Fortnight is really about? It's really about, it's like a kind of Hunger Games kind of thing, yeah. Now that you've had some time to think about Amnesia Fortnight and process it and get over any post-traumatic stress you might have experienced, how did it go? Let's start on this end of the table. JP.
I was surprised at how much the team, once the idea was out in front of the team, and how much it changed and how nice and natural that felt, because it's this open-ended game with a modular design that you could go all kinds of different ways with, and the team really started like shaping that in their own ways when they started talking about and working on different parts of it. A 2-week project, like that's not the time to like be an auteur really, and just like figure out how to really like make your vision come out. It's more about just like rolling with this collaborative, iterative kind of spirit of things. Oftentimes it was like, okay, you, Anna or Jeremy or whoever, and I would rather go with the version that you feel most confident in, even if it does diverge a little bit. That was the other thing, like there were very few things that we like diametrically differed about, and so it was usually just like a matter of steering by degrees instead of like these big course corrections, which again, I think are less of a problem with a 2-week project. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, one of my famous trailing sentences.
Is that a similar experience for you guys? How about you, Andy?
Actually, after a couple of days, I think the focus really became about how do we get to a playable thing. And that became like an all-consuming, that was our all-consuming goal, really. I thought the tech would be a little bit more robust for us to get going quickly than it was. It took us a little bit longer to get to a playable state, however rough that was. And there were a number of days where I'd really wanted to have a full team playthrough so we could all sit and critique and then react to that. And in the end, we didn't get a full playable until 2:30 in the morning of the day that it all had to be handed in. So we all went home after that and we'd played through it once.
My tip for that is to not give your goal a win state and then...
Because it was such a mad scramble, just to have the bare minimum playable, you're saying there was no time for debate.
In some sense, yeah. I mean, the nuts and bolts of it and the steps we took to get there was obviously some debate, but yeah.
How about you, Levi? Did you have like a consensus team? You're the most first-time project lead.
The most.
So were you bullied the most by your team? Or you still, in your first project, you care if people like you or not, so you're trying to make everyone like you, right? And then afterwards, you don't care about that anymore. But
I think that people saw that I had been thinking about it for so long that they figured that I had made a lot of decisions based on figuring them out, though I didn't.
So you appeared to be strong in your convictions.
I think I still gave out like lots of roles to people for them to make their own decisions within the framework. So it wasn't me just demanding that people do certain things, but...
Demand, that's a hard word.
Yeah.
Offer a choice of do it or get fired.
Well, I can see it in one way where, like, if one person is making all the decisions, it cuts down on the amount of meetings and back and forth you have, along the way. And I mean, my game was far less complicated than his. So.
I think it depends on the type of game you're making.
Yeah.
You know, that's why my project, which basically had didn't have a strong art direction coming in, and doesn't really have a story other than what emerges from the game. I think that's what makes it an odd duck. I think, and yeah, like the thought that you guys had put into the art and story stuff ahead of time, I think is like a really valuable unifying thing. So.
And Lee, you're somewhere in the middle in that you have a system-driven game like JP had, but I know that you're a preparer. You're one who prepares things on the train on the way to work.
Yeah, I think I try and prepare enough enough information that I can talk to people about, put some documents in front of their face, and explain my original intent, and then we discuss about if that still works. And you just have to kind of react to what's coming on screen. I think you can only do so much planning ahead of time, and I think it's more about looking at what's going on and embracing the things that are working that still fit within your initial ideas, or the ideas that are more interesting, and keeping that going forward and letting some stuff go. So we did that a lot. Like one of the things is I had this inventory system, and I was like, oh, players have the inventory because. And Patrick's like, why don't we just get rid of that for this prototype? Why don't we just have the player has to pick stuff up and hold it and then like just make stuff ad hoc? And I was a little worried about the amount of traversal for that, but in the scope of the demo, I was like, well, that simplifies a lot of work and it keeps it more immediate and a little less like, oh, I can just have my own library of parts and I don't care if something's trying to kill me because I've already gone and just done loops collecting everything. So I think it kept the experience a little more immediate and interesting. And that was, something that Patrick had said early on, day one.
Am I imagining it? It seemed like this one got a lot more. It seemed like a lot more got done. It seemed like to be the most complete AF projects we've ever done, and I don't know why you guys think that is.
Part of it, I think, is just seeing what's been done before. Because when I did the first AF, Double Fine only did one before I got here, and most of those, very few of those, were what I call complete experience. And when you talk to people about them, a lot of it was like, oh, I just wanted to do this experimental thing.
Yeah, some were just tech demos.
And we were doing stacking. I was like, I want to make something with the beginning, middle, end that even has like a little tiny tutorial mode that explains that. I really tried to push for that. Now that we're actually using them to pitch to publishers, which wasn't necessarily the case, it kind of recalibrates like how you think about it. When I do like a game jam for 48 hours, like, I'm trying to make it kind of complete, but I'm just as happy if it's just interesting and totally incomplete because I'm not going to pitch it to anyone. And I think it's got different expectations, and you've seen the results of those going forward. That I think that you can't not think about that in your mind about pushing for that.
I feel like the voting process that we use probably selected for games that were already sort of formulated as complete experiences too. The things that seemed to get more votes were the things that is like when described, you could understand the full picture of what that thing was. So it's like, whereas internally, if we were selecting, we might have been more experimental with our choices. Like as a consumer of that, I think what you're looking for is a thing that is interesting for you to play when it's done. Like you're probably gonna be more interested in the more defined experiences.
So it wasn't just the terror that someone was actually going to play these prototypes that made everyone.
That terror's a good force too.
Yeah, it's always
that
there.
definitely kept me up at night.
Yeah, I would never do what you guys did. Why you signed up for it? It was nuts.
I always find it a mix of terror and it's cool to share stuff with people and see people in this world that you helped create. But it's also terror. There's also terror because you're like, it's full of faults. It just gives you kind of mixed emotions. But I think it's that way anytime you create anything and you put it in front of people. I think gameplay testing games that you're working on for real is one of the most valuable things that you can have. Like people just watching them play and keeps you humble too, because you realize how stupid you are and how many mistakes you make. And you only get so much information because that's like this really small, short burst. People don't get to spend much time with it. And this sort of like half an hour play session with Greg running around with a camera going,
Let's talk about Greg. How much of a pain was Greg?
what's the scale, 0 to 10?
Oh my God.
But it has to be a taller scale than usual.
I thought when I was in the bathroom, and he was streaming that, I felt like that was a little.
What kind of streaming are you talking about? So, did you guys enjoy the live streaming or not?
No. That was the worst part. I didn't like having the morning meetings on the live stream. I felt that just basically made those pointless. Because I've worked with almost everybody in that team, I felt that I could kind of sense differences in people's behavior when we were on the live stream than how I was used to working with them over the last year.
Was Dave Gardner doing more poses? Was he doing more
Dave loves the camera.
Was he flexing while he was making points? So you know what
I don't know, that wasn't the ideal. That's not how I would have wanted to start off a working day with the whole team.
You never got used to it?
No.
How the rest of you guys, did you find it oppressive?
If it made anybody on my team even a little bit uncomfortable, even a little bit less comfortable, I feel like that by itself is a good reason not to do it. The documentary stuff was awesome. You know, I enjoyed the occasional like interview questions that they would ask, because that was actually like one of a rare moment to step back and collect my thoughts because that is not what you're doing in the middle of those 2 weeks.
What's the main thing that you wish had you gone differently on your project, or something that if you're doing it again you would definitely do differently?
Here, Brandon would program it all by himself.
I mean, mine's pretty specific to the design of the game, but the very first like special item that you get is actually a very technically complicated one to implement.
Laptop or
the one that let you record the entire state of the game and then
Oh, yeah.
restore from any point. Like that's a pretty sophisticated piece of technology, and Paul spent most of the project working on it. I mean, it is essentially a save game, and it's this important mechanic for the bigger version of the game, because you need to be able to like recover from when you break things in a way where the game crashes or something like that. But I think that the prototype version could have done without it, and then I would have had that resource in Paul to work on other items that you could use in the game that would show you more interesting and deeper hacking mechanics. That would.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I wish I'd planned a little bit more ahead of time, like JP was saying. Spent a little more time focusing on what made the game different from our influences and not what made it like our influences, because I don't really feel we spent enough time trying to step out of the shadow of our influences as much as I would have liked.
It's funny all this talk about preparing in advance, because it's still a thing we struggle with the big projects, because you rarely get that luxury of having like just one or two people for a while before. It's usually like, okay, we got the money, go, like here's your team, and like let's go. And so in some ways Amnesia Fortnight is a good preparation for like how the hell to like get something done.
Even a day between
Yeah.
finding out what our teams were and starting would have been great, to just being able to sit down and just explain the ideas to everybody, talk about what we were trying to do, get some back and forth, and maybe just even that would have been, I think that would have made a difference.
That would have been 15 days though. That would have changed the name of it. It would have been a Fortnite anymore. Besides the fact that you got it done. Like you got it done and it works, and that's a miracle in itself, right? So you achieved it, your team didn't lynch you, and your thing is playable, and they all turned out, I think, really good. So what's special to your prototype are you the most proud of actually accomplishing? Who wants to start? JP.
I think the fact that nobody on the team had worked on exactly that kind of game before, but that we got it done, because it's a very difficult kind of game to bootstrap up to like a minimum playable thing.
Doing genres that you've never tried before is an important Double Fine skill.
I know, yeah, right. It means we're constantly, falling into new territory, and so it's scary, but cool.
How about you, Levi?
The biggest thing I took away from the whole process as like an accomplishment and all wasn't necessarily the game, but just that the team seemed to enjoy themselves the whole time with just how much work they were getting done. Like it could so go the other way. It could so be like, you got this thing done, and it's like a lot of work and it's a lot of man hours.
Hate each other,
but everybody by the end is just like, I'm never fucking making a game with that guy.
See? The most important thing to Levi was that everybody liked him.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And they did. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. It won't last. Okay, Lee, what were you most proud of?
It was an art look that I had never done before, and it was a type of game that I've worked on some first-person games, but I've never really tried to do some types of systems design that was fun and challenging and scary, and it turned out pretty good. So
Yeah. Mr. Dillon?
So the whole point of Hack and Slash was that I had sort of like had this very specific emotional experience in my youth of playing these games that like made me not want to just explore inside them, but also kind of dismantle them and really understand how they worked. And so like I kind of came into Hack and Slash with my measure of success being that if I gave that experience to somebody else, that it would have sort of achieved what I wanted to do with the game. It was the nice thing about making a game like that in the age of the internet is that I got to see people go through that process. Like I hid some secrets in the game that weren't part of the main path. There was a forum thread the second that it was up with someone who had like rushed through a playthrough and like found this or actually had found a like secret file that wasn't referenced in the game, like located on the disk image that they had pulled from the Humble Movie Bundle website, and there's this whole thread of people who were like trying to figure out how to code it and like all the sequences that they were going through and working through it. And it's like they actually got to have that experience with the game. That was my goal.
Wait, was that file something you put there?
Yes. Yeah.
Did they find every single thing?
Yes, every secret in the game has been found. People have sent me private messages where they've decoded everything to verify and to confirm with me that they've done the whole thing. But it's like people with no programming experience. The fact that like that culture, at least for however many of those people did that, like built itself around the game was really rewarding because that was the whole point.
Yeah.
I wanted people to have that, and so I was really proud that all the flaws in that game aside, that people got to have that experience with it.
Okay. Okay, Andy, who was proud of White Birch?
I think we really got the atmosphere and the ambience that we were after. Getting to start from the music first and build the game like around that almost, rather than the other way around, is something I've wanted to do for a long time. And I think a little bit of what Brandon was saying with the community, plugging into that and what I was saying earlier about people recognizing where these influences were coming from, and now it was all coming together with the game. It was good connecting with some of those people and seeing that they were buying in really early on and understanding it, So getting to do that was cool.
I mean, the other thing is, do you feel by the end of it that it was different than at the beginning, as far as, because like I feel like with the Reds team we do get used to having cameras around and stuff like that, and
Yeah, the documentary cameras versus the live situation is pretty different because the live thing you're really kind of having to bend to get to make sure you're on the screen and can be heard and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot less transparent.
So it wasn't just like you were letting the meeting happen and it happened to be live streamed. You guys were actually engaging the audience in the live stream too.
Well, Greg was that was his full-time job, was to try and get us to engage with him. And Greg probably annoyed me a dozen times, at least. But I knew it was a good thing it was doing. It was what he was supposed to be doing. Like I remember one point we were working on the intro sequence, and I wanted the intro sequence to be a bit of a surprise. I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to start black. And then Gray's got it up, and Greg's like, "Hey guys," he's got the camera over there. Is this the intro? And he's filming it. I'm like, "Get the fuck away!" I want a little surprise where it's very rare that you can kind of like present an experience without like media or if you're working on a commercial game. So it's like it'd be kind of, I don't want anyone to see that aspect. I wanted there to be some surprise.
But like it's just like Lee was saying, like it's such a guarded thing. It's like taking all the shots in like Brutal, like we were spending so much time on like, oh, it looks good from this angle, it looks good from that angle, and let's just send out 10 that are really good, and you guard them and you give them out to the press, and then you start seeing them come out, and then when it's just like a exact shot of like just a little guy standing next to a box, and then I was like, oh no, this is what people are going to think my game is. It's this Pizza Box Man.
I think we do forget that people find that stuff interesting. Like Pizza Box Man is interesting to people who are like, because really, if you step back, how do games get made? It's so weird that they wait. How do you just go from nothing to like a game? It's just.
I understand why seeing stuff made is compelling. Like I love watching live music way more than hearing music recorded. I like seeing people draw more than looking at art. Anytime you see someone creating something, I think even people who don't like the end product like seeing it being created. Yeah. If I remember making art in public or with galleries where people are doing, there's always tons of people watching that. Those same people don't care about art in general. They won't look at painting on a wall or give it a time of day, but they like watching it being created. And the game industry in general is traditionally is being driven by the evil publisher, closed door model, and that hopefully world is dying. So I understand why it should be opened up, because people are curious. It is cool to see stuff being made, and it's not behind closed doors, but it is hard to get used to some of those distractions. You don't always want to be the dancing bear. There's times where you need to feel like you're in a protected area so that you can make mistakes or put something ugly up for a while. I don't want to be thinking about people seeing it all the time.
But I think that's great though that people got to see it, because I think that was the whole point of doing it this way, and it is a part of what we're trying to do, with let people see how games are made. I never got to see it when I was younger. I thought they were made by robots or companies that were.
We're pretty close to robots.
Exactly.
Except we're not efficient. Yeah, or smart. When are we going to just transition from making only commercial games to being like an on-hands vocational live stream school? It'll probably bring in a lot more money, and we can still make some games.
It just happened. Okay, well, thanks for being project leaders. You guys did a great job.
That's awesome.
And hope you get a chance to do it again sometime. And I hope that we actually make all these games. Yeah, but I guess what I was hoping was that it would get a lot of attention just for what a weird thing it is to open the doors on. Like letting people see. I was just really satisfied watching the footage of people working. I'm like, yeah, I've been there. Like all these things they're going through. And all the discussions about UI and what they can get done and the trade-offs and this limited time. Like all these are, it's like a little, you can see that the team's going through these arcs too that you go through on a project of like this euphoria and then this kind of like trouble. And they had this like, oh, we got to cut, but then this excitement at the end when it's done, you know, and just like what we go through usually in 2 years or 4 years or 5 years, like all in 2 weeks. I would totally do it again next year. Yeah, I mean, we always do Amnesia Fortnight. We got something really interesting by letting people pick the projects because it let me not worry like this, having this doubting like, did I just, you know, I thought that project was going to be great. Now it's not. Like, or all the projects that I didn't pick, I'd always wonder like, oh man, would that have been, I should have gone for Flopulous. Yeah, I'm trying to put myself in the head of like, could we make these into a game? There's so many more options now because before it would be just like, could you see this as an XBLA or a PSN game? Now it's like there are these tablet opportunities, there's these like free-to-play things and open development alpha funding things that you could do, and I could see a lot of these games like Autonomous and Black Lake and just jump out as like things that you could see getting someone's attention, and you can see something like Spacebase as being something that can start small and build an audience. And White Birch looks cool, but it looks hard. And when I was playing it, it kept making me think of Psychonauts and like, oh, the camera hitches here for a second. Oh, this ledge is a little bit off. Like, and I'm not saying it wouldn't be worth it, but I would not want to run that project because it just looks really hard. I say that a lot, don't I? You can tell how lazy I'm getting. Oh, I want to run that. Can I do Scrabble or something? What do you got? Like, well, let's call it a wrap, you guys. Let's just put a fork in this thing and call it done for now until everybody's playing all 5 of these games next year.
You gotta do the Amnesia Fortnight post again.
Amnesia Fortnight! Wait, was that the one?
Pretty good, yeah.
Thanks. I could just summon that anytime. Amnesia Fortnight! That's my third Lungfish Citizen voice. Freedom!